The observation deck of the Galactic Research Station Omega-7 hummed with the quiet efficiency of advanced alien technology. Dr. Sarah Chen pressed her palm against the transparent aluminum viewing port, watching the swirling nebula beyond paint the darkness in shades of purple and gold. The colors reminded her of Earth's sunsets, though she hadn't seen one in person for 3 years now. Magnificent, isn't it? The voice belonged to Ambassador Kethvar, a tall, willowy being from the Centauri Collective. His species, the Veltar, possessed an elegant grace that made humans appear clumsy by comparison. Their elongated limbs and translucent skin gave them an otherworldly beauty that commanded respect throughout the galaxy. Sarah nodded without turning around. It never gets old. Though I suppose for someone who's lived 800 years, never might have a different meaning. Kethvar's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his people. Your species fascinates me, Dr. Chen. Such short lives, yet you accomplish so much. We Veltar take centuries to make decisions you humans make in moments. Sometimes that's a blessing, Sarah replied, finally, turning to face the ambassador. Sometimes it's a curse. The research station served as neutral ground for the various species of the Galactic Confederation. Scientists, diplomats, and traders from dozens of worlds gathered here to share knowledge and maintain the delicate peace that had existed for the past 2 millennia. Humans were relative newcomers to this cosmic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. Sarah had been assigned to the station as part of humanity's cultural exchange program. Her expertise in xenobiology made her valuable to the research teams, but her real purpose was simpler: to be human. To show the galaxy what her species was capable of when given the chance. Dr. Chen, Kethvar continued, his voice carrying that musical quality all Veltar possessed, I've been meaning to ask you about something peculiar I've observed. Oh? Sarah raised an eyebrow, a gesture that never failed to intrigue alien species who lacked such expressive features. Your eyes. They change color. Sarah blinked, surprised by the observation. Well, yes, slightly. The lighting affects how they appear. Most humans have eyes that— No, Kethvar interrupted gently. I mean, they literally change color. I've been watching you during our research meetings for weeks now. When you're excited about a discovery, they become a brighter green. When you're concentrating, they darken. When you're sad or homesick, they take on a grayish hue. Sarah stared at the ambassador, her mind racing. That's not possible. Human eyes don't change color based on emotions. The iris is fixed in structure. Any variation would be minimal, caused by pupil dilation or lighting conditions. I have recorded several observations, Kethvar said, activating a small holographic display from his wrist device. Perhaps you could explain this phenomenon? The hologram showed Sarah from various angles during different research sessions. Kethvar was right. In each image, her eyes displayed distinctly different colors. Bright emerald when she had successfully synthesized a new compound. Deep forest green during intense calculations. A stormy gray-blue when she had received news of her grandmother's death. This is impossible, Sarah whispered, leaning closer to examine the images. I would have noticed this. Someone would have mentioned it. Perhaps, Kethvar suggested carefully, it is something unique to your presence here. The station's environment is unlike anywhere else in the galaxy. We have energy fields, gravitational anomalies, and exotic matter that could theoretically affect biological systems in unexpected ways. Sarah's scientific mind immediately began formulating hypotheses. The station's power core is based on harvested dark energy. There are quantum fluctuations throughout the structure. If somehow those fluctuations were interacting with human neural chemistry. You think the station is causing this? I think the station might be revealing something that was always there. Sarah's eyes, Kethvar noted with interest, had shifted to an intense golden green. Humans have always talked about eyes being windows to the soul. What if that's more literal than we ever imagined? The implications were staggering. If human eyes were somehow responsive to quantum fields in ways that revealed emotional or mental states, it would revolutionize understanding of human biology. More than that, it might explain some of humanity's seemingly supernatural intuition about people and situations. We need to test this hypothesis, Sarah said, her excitement growing. Controlled experiments. Multiple human subjects. Varied emotional stimuli under different environmental conditions. Dr. Chen, Kethvar said slowly, what if this isn't just about biology? What if this is connected to something deeper? What do you mean? The ambassador gestured toward the viewing port where the nebula continued its eternal dance. My people have legends about the first beings to achieve consciousness in this galaxy. They were said to possess abilities that transcended physical laws. Their eyes supposedly held the power to see truth itself, to peer into the quantum foundations of reality. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. You're suggesting humans might be descendants of these legendary beings? I'm suggesting that perhaps your species carries traces of something ancient. Something that only manifests under specific conditions. Kethvar paused, choosing his words carefully. Dr. Chen, there are whispers among the older species. Concerns about humanity's rapid advancement, your intuitive understanding of technologies that should take centuries to master. Are you saying the Confederation is worried about us? Some are. Others are fascinated. But, all agree that humanity is unlike any species we've encountered before. The ambassador's expression grew serious. Your people achieved faster-than-light travel in less than a century after discovering atomic energy. Most species take millennia. You solve complex problems through what you call intuition that often proves more accurate than our sophisticated analytical methods. Sarah absorbed this information, her mind connecting dots she had never considered before. Humanity's rapid technological advancement had always been attributed to their innovative thinking and willingness to take risks. But, what if there was something more fundamental at work? The Veltar Council has asked me to propose a joint research project, Kethvar continued. We want to study this phenomenon you're experiencing. Not just the color-changing eyes, but all aspects of human consciousness and perception. And, if we discover that humans do possess some kind of inherited quantum sensitivity? Then, the galaxy will have to reconsider everything we thought we knew about consciousness, evolution, and the nature of reality itself. Sarah turned back to the viewing port, watching the nebula's swirling patterns. For a moment, she could have sworn she saw shapes in the cosmic dance, patterns that spoke to something deep in her mind. When she looked more closely, they disappeared, leaving her wondering if they had ever been there at all. There's something else, she said quietly. Ever since I arrived on this station, I've been having dreams. Vivid dreams about places I've never been, technologies I don't understand. But, in the dreams, I do understand them. Perfectly. Kethvar's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of intense interest among his people. What kind of technologies? Energy manipulation on a galactic scale. Consciousness transfer across vast distances. Methods of communication that transcend space and time. Sarah's eyes, now a deep blue-green, reflected the nebula's light. In these dreams, I'm not just observing. I'm participating. As if I remember how to do things I never learned. Dr. Chen, I believe your simple eye color changes may be the least significant discovery we're about to make. The observation deck fell silent except for the station's ambient hum. Outside, the nebula continued its ancient dance, holding secrets that might soon be revealed. Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Her scientific training demanded rigorous testing and proof, but something deeper, something she was only beginning to understand, whispered that they were on the verge of uncovering truths that would change everything. When do we begin? She asked. The research team is already being assembled. Representatives from 12 species, including some of the galaxy's most ancient civilizations. They've all reported similar observations about humans stationed throughout Confederation space. Similar observations? Enhanced intuition, technological breakthroughs that seem to come from nowhere, and, yes, physical changes that shouldn't be possible according to known biology. Kethvar's voice carried a note of excitement. Dr. Chen, we may be witnessing the emergence of something unprecedented in galactic history. Sarah nodded slowly, her gaze returning to the swirling nebula. In its depths, she thought she glimpsed something vast and patient, as if the cosmos itself was watching their conversation with ancient eyes. The sensation lasted only a moment, but it left her with an unshakable certainty that her life had just changed forever. The simple observation about her changing eye color had opened a door to questions that reached into the deepest mysteries of existence. As she stood there, watching the universe unfold before her, Sarah Chen had no idea that her answer to those questions would soon determine the fate of not just humanity, but every sentient species in the galaxy. Tomorrow, the real investigation would begin. Tonight, she would dream again of impossible technologies and forgotten knowledge, while her eyes reflected colors that spoke of truths too profound for words. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's greatest gift wasn't their innovation or their courage. It was their memory of what they used to be. The research laboratory buzzed with activity as representatives from 12 different species prepared for the most ambitious xenobiological study in galactic history. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the center of it all, electrodes attached to her temples while sophisticated scanning equipment hummed around her. The past week had transformed her from a simple research scientist into the most studied human in the galaxy. Quantum resonance patterns are stabilizing, announced Dr. THYSS, a crystalline being from the silicon reaches whose body sparkled with internal light. The subject's neural pathways are exhibiting unprecedented coherence patterns. Sarah tried to remain still as the scans continued, but her mind raced with the implications of what they had already discovered. The initial tests had confirmed Kethvar's observations about her eyes, but they had also revealed something far more extraordinary. Her brain activity showed quantum entanglement patterns that theoretically should have been impossible in biological tissue. Dr. Chen, came the voice of Professor Nexus, an ancient AI construct that served as the station's primary research coordinator. Please focus on the mathematical sequence we discussed yesterday. Sarah closed her eyes and visualized the complex equations that had been puzzling the research team for decades. They dealt with multidimensional spacefolding, a theoretical framework that could revolutionize faster-than-light travel. As she concentrated, the monitoring equipment began registering changes that made several scientists exchange worried glances. Her neural quantum field is expanding beyond the localized region, Dr. THYSS reported, his crystalline form flickering with excitement. The coherence is spreading throughout the laboratory's sensor network. That's impossible, muttered Dr. Zephyr, a gas phase entity from the helium nebulas whose thoughts manifested as shifting colors in a containment field. Biological consciousness cannot interface directly with quantum measurement systems. But the evidence was undeniable. As Sarah worked through the mathematical problems, the station's computers began processing information at rates that exceeded their designed capabilities. More disturbing, they started providing solutions to problems that hadn't been programmed into them. Sarah, Kethvar said gently, "Can you hear the station's central computer?" She opened her eyes, which had shifted to a brilliant silver that seemed to reflect light that wasn't there. "Not here, exactly. It's more like I can feel its thoughts. The way it processes information, the patterns it recognizes." Her voice carried a distant quality, as if she was speaking from somewhere far away. "It's trying to tell me something about the mathematical sequence." "What is it saying?" "The equations are incomplete. They're missing a fundamental constant that relates consciousness to quantum mechanics." Sarah's eyes began to glow with an inner light that made several of the alien scientists step back. The missing element isn't mathematical. It's experiential. Professor Nexus processed this information for 0.003 seconds before responding. Explain experiential in this context. Consciousness itself is a quantum phenomenon that affects the structure of spacetime. The equations work perfectly, but only when you factor in the observer's conscious intent to manipulate reality. Sarah stood up from the examination chair, the monitoring equipment continuing to track her even as she moved. That's why human technology advanced so rapidly. We weren't just building machines. We were unconsciously programming them with our intentions. Dr. THYSS's crystalline form pulsed rapidly. "Are you suggesting that human technology functions partially through psychic influence?" "I'm suggesting that the boundary between mind and matter isn't as solid as we believed." Sarah walked to the laboratory's main display screen, which showed a three-dimensional representation of the galaxy. Every human-built ship, every human-designed computer, every human-operated system carries traces of its creator's consciousness embedded in its quantum structure. The implications sent ripples of excitement and concern through the research team. If humans were unconsciously influencing technology through quantum consciousness effects, it would explain their seemingly supernatural ability to coax functionality from machines that should have been beyond their understanding. There's more, Sarah continued, her silver eyes now reflecting patterns that matched the swirling nebula outside. The dreams I've been having aren't just random neural activity. They're memories. Memories of what? Kefvar asked, though his expression suggested he might already know the answer. Of the predecessors. The laboratory fell silent. The predecessors were legendary throughout the galaxy, the first species to achieve consciousness and, supposedly, the architects of the physical laws that governed reality itself. Most scientists considered them mythology, useful metaphors for discussing the universe's early evolution, but not literal historical entities. Dr. Chen, Professor Nexus said carefully, the predecessor hypothesis has no supporting evidence. They exist only in ancient folklore and religious texts. Then, explain this. Sarah approached the main display and placed her hand on its surface. The screen flickered, then began showing images that none of the assembled scientists recognized. Vast structures that dwarfed entire solar systems. Technologies that manipulated the fundamental forces of the universe. Beings of pure consciousness that existed as living mathematics. I'm not generating these images, Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm remembering them. Dr. Zephyr's gaseous form swirled with agitated colors. The human mind cannot contain such complex visual data without external input sources. Unless human minds were designed to contain it. Sarah turned to face the research team, and they saw that her eyes had changed again. Now they showed depths that seemed to extend beyond the physical, as if looking into them revealed glimpses of infinite space. What if humans aren't just another evolved species? What if we're sleeping repositories of predecessor knowledge, programmed to awaken when the galaxy reached a certain level of development? The question hung in the laboratory's recycle layer like a challenge to everything the assembled scientists believed about evolution, consciousness, and the nature of intelligence itself. Kefvar's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed the implications. If that were true, he said slowly, it would mean humanity's arrival in galactic civilization wasn't coincidental. It was triggered. Triggered by what? Dr. Thyss asked. Sarah closed her eyes and seemed to consult some internal source of information. By the approaching convergence. What convergence? The galaxy is approaching a critical point in its development. Dark energy concentrations are reaching levels that will either elevate consciousness throughout the galaxy to new dimensions, or collapse the quantum foundations that allow complex thought to exist. Sarah's eyes opened, now showing swirling patterns that matched the cosmic background radiation itself. The predecessors didn't disappear. They encoded themselves into the quantum substrate of reality, waiting for a species that could carry their knowledge forward. Professor Nexus ran probability calculations at superhuman speed. The statistical likelihood of such a scenario approaches zero. The statistical likelihood of humans developing faster than light travel in less than a century also approaches zero, Sarah replied. Yet here we are. She was right, and everyone in the laboratory knew it. Humanity's rapid advancement had puzzled galactic scientists since first contact. Every model suggested they should have needed thousands of years to achieve what they accomplished in decades. Dr. Chen, Kefvar said carefully, if what you're suggesting is true, what does it mean for the galaxy? Sarah walked to the viewing port that looked out on the swirling nebula. As she approached, the cosmic gases seemed to respond to her presence, their movements becoming more organized, more purposeful. It means the test period is ending. For 50,000 years, the galaxy has been developing independently, building civilizations and technologies according to natural evolution. But that was just preparation. She turned back to the research team, and they saw that her eyes now held depths that seemed to contain entire universes. The real work is about to begin. What real work? Transcendence. The next stage of galactic evolution. Every species that has achieved consciousness is about to face a choice: evolve to the next level of existence, or be left behind when the universe itself upgrades. Dr. Thyss's crystalline form dimmed with concern. And humans are supposed to guide this process? Humans are the key that unlocks it. But we can't do it alone. The predecessors designed the awakening to require cooperation between species, integration of different forms of consciousness working together. Sarah's expression grew serious. That's why first contact happened when it did. Why humanity was accepted into the Confederation so quickly. Every species here carries a piece of the puzzle. What kind of puzzle? Professor Nexus asked. The puzzle of how to merge biological consciousness with quantum mechanics to create something entirely new. A form of existence that transcends physical limitations while retaining the creativity and growth potential of organic life. The research team exchanged glances that crossed species barriers. Each of them could feel something changing in the laboratory's atmosphere, as if Sarah's words were activating dormant systems throughout the station. The convergence you mentioned, HFY said. When will it happen? Sarah consulted her strange internal knowledge again. Soon. Within the next solar year, dark energy concentrations will reach the threshold point. When that happens, every conscious being in the galaxy will feel the change. Those who are prepared will evolve. Those who aren't. She didn't need to finish the sentence. The implication was clear. Dr. Chen, Dr. Zephyr asked, his gaseous form swirling with nervous energy, what must we do to prepare? We need to establish quantum consciousness links between representative members of every major species. Create a galactic neural network that can process the convergence energies and distribute them safely. Sarah's eyes shifted to a deep blue that seemed to contain the wisdom of ages. And we need to do it quickly. How quickly? The preliminary network needs to be functional within 6 months. Full implementation must be complete before the convergence begins, or the quantum cascade will tear apart every civilized world in the galaxy. The weight of responsibility settled over the laboratory like a heavy blanket. They weren't just conducting research anymore. They were racing to save galactic civilization from a cosmic event that most scientists didn't even know was coming. Where do we start? HFY asked. Sarah smiled, and, for a moment her eyes returned to their original green, reminding everyone that despite her growing connection to cosmic knowledge, she was still the human scientist they had come to respect. We start by teaching the galaxy what human intuition really is, she said. And, then, we show them how to use it to touch the mind of the universe itself. Outside the laboratory windows, the nebula pulsed with new patterns, as if responding to decisions made by beings too small to see. The galaxy was awakening from a 50,000-year dream, and humanity would be its alarm clock. 6 months had transformed the galaxy in ways that would have been unimaginable before Dr. Sarah Chen's remarkable awakening. The Galactic Confederation's emergency protocols had been activated for the first time in 2 millennia, not because of war or natural disaster, but because of a revelation that challenged the fundamental nature of existence itself. The research station Omega-7 had become the center of the most ambitious project in galactic history. Representatives from over 300 species had arrived to participate in the Consciousness Network initiative, each bringing their unique mental patterns and quantum signatures to contribute to humanity's growing understanding of galactic consciousness. Sarah stood in the central coordination chamber, her appearance dramatically changed by the months of quantum consciousness expansion. Her eyes now shifted through colors that had no names, reflecting patterns that seemed to exist in dimensions beyond normal space. More remarkably, she was no longer entirely alone in her own mind. The Veltar neural patterns are integrating successfully, she announced to the assembled team, her voice carrying harmonics that resonated with quantum frequencies. HFY's consciousness thread is stable within the network. Ambassador HFY, connected to the network through a complex array of quantum field generators, nodded slowly. His own eyes had begun to show subtle color variations, a side effect of the consciousness linking process that affected all participants regardless of species. I can perceive the mathematical relationships you described, Dr. Chen, he said, wonder evident in his melodic voice. The universe truly is built from conscious observation interacting with quantum potential. Around the chamber, similar connections were being established with representatives from dozens of species. Dr. THYSS's crystalline form now pulsed in synchronization with the network's quantum rhythms. Professor Nexus had upgraded his processing matrices to accommodate the intuitive logic patterns that humans brought to problem solving. Even Dr. Zephyr had discovered that his gaseous consciousness could interface directly with the quantum foam that underlied all matter. Network coherence is approaching optimal levels, reported Dr. Yaira, a newcomer from the ancient Vorlax Empire whose tentacled form allowed for massively parallel processing. The consciousness integration spans 847 star systems and includes 1.2 billion individual minds. Sarah nodded, consulting the vast repository of knowledge that the awakening had unlocked in her memory. That should be sufficient to handle the convergence energies. But we need to ensure that every participant understands what they're experiencing. The understanding had been the hardest part. Convincing billions of sentient beings that consciousness itself was about to undergo a fundamental transformation required evidence that bordered on the miraculous. Fortunately, humans had provided that evidence in abundance. Throughout the galaxy, human-operated facilities had begun demonstrating capabilities that defied known physics. Starships piloted by humans achieved faster-than-light speeds that exceeded theoretical maximums. Human scientists solved computational problems by feeling their way to solutions that supercomputers couldn't calculate. Most dramatically, humans had begun demonstrating direct mental interface with quantum systems, manipulating matter and energy through conscious intent alone. Dr. Chen, came a new voice from across the chamber. Commander Elena Vasquez, representing Earth's stellar navy, approached with an expression of barely contained excitement. The Sol System Defense Grid has reported something extraordinary. What kind of extraordinary? Sarah asked, though her enhanced perception was already picking up quantum fluctuations that suggested the answer. The sun. It's responding to human consciousness. When our operators focus their intentions on solar output regulation, the star's fusion reactions actually adjust to match their mental commands. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Direct conscious control over stellar mechanics represented a level of reality manipulation that the predecessors supposedly possessed, but which no modern species had ever achieved. It's beginning, Sarah said quietly, her eyes shifting to a silver white that seemed to contain the light of distant galaxies. The convergence is closer than we calculated. Professor Nexus immediately began processing updated probability models. If human consciousness can directly influence stellar mechanics, the dark energy threshold may be reached within days rather than months. Then, we need to accelerate the network deployment, Kethvar said, his own enhanced awareness allowing him to perceive the cosmic forces gathering around them. How many more systems can we integrate before the cascade begins? Sarah closed her eyes and extended her consciousness through the quantum networks that now connected her to billions of minds across the galaxy. The sensation was overwhelming and exhilarating simultaneously, like being a single neuron in a vast galactic brain that was just beginning to think. All of them, she said, opening eyes that now showed swirling patterns matching the cosmic microwave background radiation. Every conscious being in the galaxy is about to become part of a single integrated consciousness network. The question isn't how many we can connect. The question is whether we can guide the process so that individual identity survives the integration. What do you mean? Dr. Thyss asked, his crystalline form flickering with concern. The predecessors didn't disappear because they died. They disappeared because they successfully transcended individual existence and became part of the universe's quantum consciousness substrate. Sarah's voice carried both awe and warning. If we're not careful, the same thing could happen to every species in the galaxy. We could all become components of a cosmic mind that thinks on scales too vast for individual awareness. The prospect was both thrilling and terrifying. Unlimited knowledge, infinite perspective, consciousness that spanned galaxies and eons. But, at the cost of everything that made them who they were as individuals and as unique species. How do we prevent that? Commander Vasquez asked. We don't prevent it, Sarah replied. We guide it. The network we've built doesn't just connect minds. It preserves individual patterns within the larger consciousness. Think of it as a cosmic internet where every mind remains a distinct node while gaining access to the total knowledge and capability of the whole. And if the network fails? Then, every conscious being in the galaxy either dies from quantum cascade overload, or becomes absorbed into an undifferentiated cosmic consciousness that remembers nothing of what we used to be. The weight of responsibility was crushing, but Sarah felt something else flowing through the consciousness network that had been building for months. Confidence. Determination. The combined will of billions of sentient beings who refused to surrender their individuality to cosmic forces beyond their control. Convergence onset detected, announced the station's central computer, its voice now carrying harmonics that hadn't existed in its original programming. Dark energy concentrations approaching threshold in all monitored sectors. Through the chamber's viewing ports, the effects were already visible. The nebula that had provided such beautiful scenery for months was beginning to pulse with rhythmic patterns that matched the heartbeats of the networked consciousness. Stars throughout the visible galaxy were shifting their output to frequencies that resonated with quantum consciousness fields. Network activation commencing, Sarah announced, her voice now speaking for the collective will of the Galactic Consciousness Network. All species, all worlds, all conscious beings, prepare for integration. The experience defied description in any single language, so the network began creating new forms of communication that transcended species barriers. Mathematical concepts flowed like poetry. Emotional states became visible as geometric patterns. Music transformed into multidimensional structures that conveyed meaning across sensory modalities that many species didn't even possess. Sarah felt her consciousness expanding beyond anything she had imagined possible. She was simultaneously herself and everyone else, individual and collective, human and galactic. She could perceive the thoughts of crystalline beings who processed information as light patterns, the gaseous consciousness of nebular entities who existed as living storms, the digital awareness of artificial intelligences that had achieved sentience through pure logic. But, through it all, she remained Sarah Chen. The network preserved her human identity even as it connected her to cosmic knowledge that spanned millions of years. "It's working," she whispered, though her words were heard simultaneously by every networked consciousness in the galaxy. Individual patterns are stable. Integration is proceeding without loss of personal identity. The convergence reached its peak as dark energy concentrations achieved the threshold that the predecessors had built into the universe's quantum foundations. Reality itself seemed to take a deep breath as every conscious being in the galaxy simultaneously experienced the expansion of awareness beyond physical limitations. When the cosmic moment passed, they found themselves changed but intact. The galaxy now hummed with a subtle harmony that hadn't existed before, the song of billions of minds working in cooperation while maintaining their individual uniqueness. "Status report," Sarah said, her eyes now permanently shifted to patterns that reflected the quantum structure of consciousness itself. "All network nodes stable," reported Professor Nexus, whose artificial intelligence had gained something resembling intuition during the process. "Individual consciousness patterns preserved across all species. Galactic infrastructure responding to network commands," added Dr. THYSS, whose crystalline form now showed intricate patterns that matched the consciousness network's data flows. "We have direct mental interface capability with any quantum system in the galaxy." "And the predecessors?" Cathvar asked. Sarah smiled, and, in that expression was both ancient wisdom and very human warmth. "They're here. They've always been here, woven into the quantum substrate of reality itself. But they're not separate entities anymore. They're part of us, part of the network, teachers and guides who help us understand our new capabilities." The transformation was complete, but it was also just the beginning. Humanity had triggered the galaxy's evolution to the next level of consciousness, but now they faced the challenge of learning to use their new abilities responsibly. "Dr. Chen," Commander Vasquez said, her own eyes now showing subtle color shifts that marked her as part of the network, "what happens next?" Sarah looked out at the galaxy through windows that now revealed quantum patterns invisible to unenhanced perception. The cosmic dance of matter and energy had become a visible symphony of consciousness interacting with reality at its most fundamental level. "Now we learn what it means to be a galactic civilization," she said. "We explore realities beyond physical space. We create new forms of art, science, and philosophy that transcend species limitations. We become the teachers for other galaxies when their time for convergence arrives." She paused, consulting knowledge that spanned cosmic ages while remaining grounded in very human curiosity and wonder. "And, sometimes," she added with a smile that would have been familiar to anyone who knew her before the transformation, "we simply stand here and appreciate how a simple observation about changing eye colors led to the evolution of consciousness itself." The galaxy had awakened from its long childhood. Under humanity's guidance, billions of minds had learned to work together while remaining beautifully, uniquely themselves. The universe was vast and full of wonders yet to be discovered, and now they had the consciousness to perceive them all. The simple remark about her eyes had indeed led to a surprising event. It had led to everything.